My first wedding was actually when I was 16. Yeah. I turned up on the wedding day and I had, for some reason, a tripod just for when the bride came. I looked away for 1 second and it got blown over and smashed. It was within a minute of the bride arriving. She turned up and I had to tell her what happened. It really was a disaster. They were not happy.
We're joined by Xander and Christine. They're also known as Navy Blur. So you're Irish wedding photographers. You've been doing it 15 years?
We just started taking photos of people that we knew. And then from there, someone was like, oh, would you shoot our wedding? I feel like we fell into it, but that was the whole like being young, dumb, naive. Looking back, it was good how much we didn't know. Otherwise, we would have been terrified going into it. Any bride and groom could have the most glorious Pinterest board of like Californian sunlight and all the dreamy kind of like things. And I go, but we live in Northern Ireland. Like,
this podcast is sponsored by Smart Mortgages.
Smart Mortgages are dedicated to making your mortgage process simple with fast decisions, honest advice and solutions that fit your life.
Click the link in the description and take 60 seconds to complete their mortgage readiness quiz. They'll send you a personalised report with advice and guidance that will bring you home. How's it going, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Here's the Crack podcast. Now, I do have to say, we're in a different location today. We are in the Ticket Beck House in Cullibaggy, and Maya has graciously let us use this lovely space. So shout out to the Ticket Beck House. We'll link them in the descriptions and stuff below. If you're ever in Cullibaggy, pop in for a visit. The train is literally next to us. So if you hear this during the middle of the podcast, it adds to the scene, I believe. What also adds to the scene is we're joined by Xander and Christine.
oh, hey there.
All right.
How's it going, guys?
Good.
Now, obviously, I referred to you as Xander and Christine, but you're also known as Navy Blur.
Yes.
That's right.
So I think we'll dive into a bit about that. So you're Irish wedding photographers. You've been doing it 15 years?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, probably more so now.
I know we only look like we're 15, but you know, yeah.
Yeah.
Technically, I am English, so it's kind of like a bit
you don't
of a
want to be known
hybrid
as
thing,
an Irish.
They're going to hear the
Hybrid wedding
accent.
photographers.
They're going to hear the accent, but he ain't Irish. So, yeah.
So I suppose the best place to start is obviously Navy Blur, wedding photographers. How did you get in to the wedding photography business?
Well, okay, I'll start this one. I kind of fell into it.
Yeah.
So I did college and I really didn't want to do college. And my mum said, oh, go and do photography. It'll be really dossy. Mm-hmm. So I went, all right, fine, I'll go and do that because my mum really wanted me to be into college. And then I discovered it was really, really, really hard. It was like A-levels, so it was really like heavy, and it was all about this photographer from 1,000 years ago and that photographer and why they did that, and I didn't care about that stuff.
Yeah.
But by that point, I'd already been like, well, I've got a camera. Maybe I should just kind of keep photographing it and kind of, see where I go from there. So that's how I started.
Yeah.
So the wedding photography specifically, like when we got together, we were total little dorks at 18, and I guess we just started taking photos of people that we knew. So locally we would have been like, hey, we do family photography, set up a ridiculous little like white studio in a friend's house, which was very kind of them to let us do that. And then from there, someone was like, oh, would you shoot our wedding? And we were like, yeah, let's do that. And so I feel like we fell into it, but that was the whole like being young, dumb, naive, rather than us going out there and searching to become wedding photographers.
Yeah. So did you have sort of photography? Were you into sort of photography like Xander was, or did you just kind of fall into it?
Over here, obviously, the school system slightly less on the creative side. So when I did work experience, I did go to a wedding photographer and I was like, oh, that was amazing. But I felt really insecure about that as an option, as a career option. So I definitely, I had the camera and I was always doing photos of friends. And then when I must have started to research colleges, and I did go for maybe 3 months, realized that wasn't for me after school. But yeah, that was kind of how when we met, that was the stage we both had cameras, and that's how we kind of got started.
And then when I wanted to go back and restudy, because I didn't do very well at school, I kind of thought, I wonder if I tried, would I actually do pretty good? But I knew that if I went back to college, I wouldn't be able to work and see Christine, because obviously I was flying over so much to see her. And then my mum thought, oh, you should just look in Northern Ireland and 2 birds, 1 stone kind of thing. So I found a course in Lurgan, which was much more easier. It was I did a BTEC, which means it was all practical. It was less about written stuff. It was just go and have fun. And then I made that my mission to do as creative a thing I could do with anything I was doing, whether it was architecture or fine art or portraiture, anything. I'd just try and flip it on its head and make it completely different. And that's kind of how it grew together. Because when I moved over, I moved in with Teenie and her family and shared a room with her brother. And that's kind of how everything built up. We were photographing. And then we thought, we should make this something proper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny how, like, looking back at, like, even I look back at our, I suppose you're probably the same, like, your architecture degree.
Yeah.
I look back at my marketing degree, and you're like, you go in and you're like, I'm going to get so much experience, and I'm going to come out and I'm going to be like this whiz kid. And you probably thought like the same when you were doing like the photography side of things. But then when you're in a classroom learning about, like, you were learning about people from like 100 years ago doing photography, it's like, what practical skills am I actually going to learn whenever I physically get a camera in my hand and want to make a career out of it? Like, all this stuff's great, but it's like the practical side of things. I think nothing teaches you more than just getting out
100%.
and doing the thing.
I think that's what helped with Lurgan. I think that actually it was more about like, just go.
Yeah.
I'm more happy just like, let me do my thing, and then you can critique it after. That's fine. Just let me go.
Yeah.
Let me go.
So I suppose looking at like the practical side, talk to us about, because I'm always eager to know. I know Aaron's our producer, has sort of done weddings and stuff in the past, and I'm always eager to know what was the first wedding, because a wedding is such an important day, and it's like, I couldn't imagine like having that sort of responsibility. So explain what that was like.
Like, looking back, we laugh often about this, about how we rocked up, like everything that they told us, we were like, yeah, no problem. They were like, we're getting married in a warehouse. We were like, cool. They were like, no lights. We're like, cool. They were like, 5 p.m. Yeah, no big deal. And then they had candlelight. So I think we turned up on their wedding rehearsal because we were like, maybe that would be a good idea. And while we were there, we realized that the bride walking up the middle, we were like, she's literally in pitch black, like on our little, like tiny DSLR cameras. Like, they're not picking up anything. So I think they got a spotlight sorted. But it was very much I guess looking back, it was good how much we didn't know. Otherwise, we would have been terrified going into it. So we turned up, we shot it like as best we could. I think we had gone on some like wedding photography workshops. So, you know, where they do like lifestyle models. So we were like, yeah, we're totally prepared for this.
We know what we're doing.
And actually, like, the couple were so lovely. And I remember because they did a 5 p.m. wedding, actually, the other thing about it was that all the other, like, older men at the wedding had bigger cameras than us. So we were just there with our little, like, point and shoot kind of thing. And then they were like, Uncle Bob's and all their, like, giant gear. But we, like, honestly, like, it didn't faze us. We were just like, cool, yeah, we're the photographers for the day, feeling really official. But I remember the fun part was that we were obviously super keen to be like, how do we be creative? And we couldn't necessarily, like, that 5 p.m. wedding, it was just all squished into one. So we were like, let's do a post-wedding shoot. So we went up to the beach. And at the time, that was really like out there. And there was an ice cream truck and they were like in the water. And it was just like, it was a good opportunity to get like a little portfolio that at the time, 15 years ago, stood out, I guess.
Yeah.
So it was a fun experience.
My first wedding was actually when I was 16. This was before I'd even really started any sort of time, and it really was a disaster. This is going to make it sound like I'm making it up, but I'm really not. So I felt I was so official. I had like a little like a printed label at book, and I went to the bride and groom. I filled in all the questions. I felt really official. Yeah, it was really good. And then I turned up on the wedding day, and I had for some reason a tripod just for when the bride came. And I was fully suited and booted, had my little camera on the tripod, and I was kind of pacing around. I looked away for 1 second, and it got blown over and smashed. And no joke, it was within a minute of the bride arriving. And then she turned up and I had to tell her what happened. And then the mother of the bride just gave me a camera and said, here. She was kind of annoyed. She said, here, take it. And it was a completely different brand. And for me, as a 16-year-old, I was like, I don't know what to do. So I literally just picked it up and just photographed it and just hoped for the best. The guy who's doing the minister told me to stop taking photos. So I was like, okay, I just stopped. Then I remember drinking a bit too much, and then
as a 16-year-old,
it was in this weird church hall thing, and then I remember my dad taking me home halfway to upload the images on the SD card to the computer, and that's all I really remember for today. That was it. So that really was.
And what did you say at the end of that day?
I'd never photograph a wedding ever again.
Too
stressful. Stressful. I don't do that now, but that was my first experience of shooting a wedding.
What was the reaction from the clients like?
They were not happy. But to be fair, they just wanted, it was actually people from our church, and they put in this like church newsletter. They were looking for a free photographer.
All right. So they can't complain then.
So I mean, you get what you pay for, really. You get what you pay for. It's like,
Did you pay for the drink, or was it free?
It was free.
Yeah, there we go. Well, you have to make the most of it.
Probably some Bud Light or something. I was 16. I was like, that was a disaster.
That was a disaster.
I think like Looking at your guys' sort of style and approach to obviously your photography, like it is very unique, and I think you alluded a little bit to it there, Christine, in terms of like you like almost like a little bit of the obscurity side of things that you're not. I wouldn't classify as like normal wedding photographers, and I say that in the nicest possible way.
I'll take that.
And you obviously
you booked us.
did my wedding.
You chose us to be obscure.
And I think one of the things that really stands out is like your style. So like, how did you, was that something again you just fell into, or was that a certain, did you build it up over time, or did you always kind of know you were looking for something a little bit different and unique?
I would say that we were driven by your creativity initially. Like I typically, not even necessarily that I'm traditional, but I think that I'm more about the people. So I'm always like, my focus is like, yeah, are you having a great time? I hope you're having a great time. And so like, I always enjoyed that side of it. And so that's like a very kind of document, like make sure you capture what's in front of you. Whereas you were very much like from the very beginning, like I don't want to be like anyone else. I don't care what people expect on a wedding day. And so you would always be like off in the bushes looking for some obscure, like just something different that would then mean that you were like, hey, I've thought of a shot, come over and let's give this a go. And even like, do you remember GIFs back in the day that like we would make people move a lot and like...
We did a lot of GIFs back in the day. But
right.
Like, the weirdest GIFs you could think. So like they might jump in the end, capture them doing a pencil jump, but then we'd get them like almost looking like they're spinning around because we get them to jump.
Because why not?
Why not? It was weird and it was fun, and I had way more fun doing that and making something cool. And they would have no idea what was going on. And then as soon as you showed them afterwards, they're like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
So why do it normal?
It's funny you say, because I can remember you on my wedding day in a bush. I can specifically remember
in a bush.
Classic
but I suppose for people listening or watching who haven't came across you, like how would you describe your style?
It's sort of a mixture. I think happy is probably, I want people to look at the photos and just smile. Like I think it's we're not necessarily going too dramatic with how we direct and how we move. I think we're just looking to try and get people to laugh and smile. And I think when we get that, that's when we know to click. And so that's what I want. I want people to look at our photos and smile. That's really it. So happy is the one word I want to get straight away.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I think like that whole like bright, colorful vibes, like it just, I don't know, I wouldn't say documentary because like you say, we're in it as well. We're directing it as well. But I don't know, there's such a mishmash of it. But I think that as long as the people within the day are like highlighted, and I guess we've always said it doesn't matter what couple's in front of us. Like if you are a romantic, like look into each other's eyes all day kind of couple, we're like, let's go. If you want to like run through a field, go for it. Like I think we just try to figure out what the people in front of us are like and go, okay, we see your personality and we're going to like make that shine.
Yeah, that's right. Because they're not always the craziest, loudest people. Sometimes they're very introverted, and actually they can still have a lot of fun together because they're together doing it. They're marrying each other, so they're going to be comfortable with each other. So it's more, like Tini said, pulling out. Like you can tell really quickly from the first phone call, you know who they are, what they're like. Well, we've been doing it long enough to know that, so we know what they won't do, what they will do, and work with that. So
is that something you're sort of thinking about before you even like are there on the day, or is a lot of it sort of coming up with the shots when you're in the place and sort of seeing what actually works there and then?
Definitely the latter. Former for like personality, but latter for on the day, because the thing is, I mean, light changes. I mean, you can see in here like the light changes and moves, and like you could check it out. Like people often ask, do you go and like scout out the location beforehand? And very often we say no, usually because our work's like 3 hours away, and often because actually on a wedding day it just changes. Sun, rain, clouds. You find something really cool that they would have never spotted just because the sun came through in a specific way. So
yeah, for sure.
And I suppose that kind of bleeds into the next question of like, what is the process that like you guys have for, I suppose it's changed and evolved over the years, the longer that you've done this, but like, what is the process for you guys prepping for a wedding day?
Tini is the biggest prepper. She knows every wedding day, who it is, where it is. And for me, I'm just more like, I'll just tell me where to go. And
Sure.
I'll go. Yeah. I'll just show up and do it. The only prep stuff I do is the camera stuff. So I like lining up all the cameras like on the bed. We haven't really got a desk, so we line everything up on the bed, and I just have all the batteries lined up, and then I just like, it feels like I'm like sorting out armory or something. So I'm like, click.
It's like whenever you've got a school trip the next day.
Yeah.
You leave the clothes sitting out in the bed.
All the memory
ready to go.
cards.
And then I come along and say, have you got the batteries? And you're like, yes, Teen. I'm like, have you got the camera cards? Yes, Teen.
Yeah, you're all brain. So
Yeah.
on the drive down, I'm just usually driving in silence because like I'm fine. Tina's like, okay, so this is this. She'll go through the questionnaire. She's like, this is what's going on. I think you should do this. I think you should do this.
love it.
Make sure you photograph the guys. I'm like, yes, I'll remember to photograph the guys.
Yeah.
Just you're all brain.
Yeah, I
in
think
terms of like that.
the questionnaire is really important to us because it asks things about like family politics. So it allows us to know like what are we going into, like how this is the family dynamics.
And
Even
there
just
can be some unusual ones.
yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And even just asking them like the format of the day, because I don't know, like you can just get lost very quickly on a wedding day. So you could get lost time wise. So things like just knowing after the ceremony, like, is the ceremony location significant to them? Do they really want photos outside it? Or actually, can we just bypass that, like take photos naturally, all the mingling, and then get them to the location that they specifically want to do more stuff in? So like, yes, like Zan says, I love like that kind of preparation. And we've had like phone calls with them as well. So like when we first meet them, it's all about getting to know them. And then a week before, we're like, okay, your questionnaire says this. Are we all on the same page? Just so that really on the day, we're not bugging them with questions going, ooh, like what's your expectation in this moment? And I guess that in terms of experience, we just want to be able to go, okay, let's direct this part now. Let's like take the lead, I guess, as the photographers.
I think the one thing I would say is, and we'll get on to like later on in the podcast, like advice and guidance that you'd have for people at the time of recording this. Tommy is due to be married in 3 days.
So exciting.
And he says he's not freaking out, but
Oh, he's a mess.
he's not here today. He couldn't make it down the road. He was shaking it. No, I'm joking. I think like one of the things, because it was a weird one, and it was a weird one for us because obviously I think me and Lucinda were quite like not nervous, but we'd never been photographed before. And the one thing I will say is we did a pre-shoot with you guys. Doing that was like, looking back on it now, was the best thing we could have done, because actually on the day then we already had like that sort of rapport with you guys. We knew what we were expecting.
Even how you
whereas
slot
that
it together,
initial kind of like, I remember we did our pre-shoot in Musden, and like driving to that, I was like, Lucinda, like, I know I do a podcast, but I'm not good with this. Like, it's just strange. And then after that, the nerves from that side for prepping for the wedding day were just gone. So that's one thing I will say is like,
so good.
if anybody's listening to this and they are planning on doing a wedding, do appreciate beforehand.
Yes.
Do appreciate. I suppose like as wedding photographers, like, what are the challenges that you guys sort of, because you're obviously on the day trying to make the bride and groom feel so relaxed, but like behind the scenes, I'm sure there's elements of it where you guys, probably looking more towards you, Christine, are freaking out. But what are sort of the challenges that like you face on a wedding day?
Okay, before I cut in, I need to say about one thing. For the first year of weddings, Christine would have thrown up every wedding.
Nice.
By the time they got to dinner, by the time they called everyone in for dinner, she'd go to the bathroom.
Oh, thanks for sharing that.
So her first challenge was going through a full wedding day without vomiting.
That's great.
So,
thanks for sharing. Yeah, no, that's very real. But to be honest, that is like the growth, I guess, that comes with being an experienced wedding photographer. I think that my biggest thing on a wedding day, is those are the elements that are completely out of your control. So weather. And it's not even actually that I freak out about it anymore, but I guess it's always we have to manage a person's expectations on the wedding day. So any bride and groom could have the most glorious Pinterest board of like Californian sunlight and all the dreamy kind of like things. And I go, but we live in Northern Ireland, like grey skies, which I personally love, and rain most days or in some way along the day. So I think that for us, it's kind of managing expectations and like just hoping that people will lean into that. Like, yes, of course, most people do. Like they'll wake up and go, oh, it's raining today. But I guess we come along with that and be like, okay, don't worry. There's always going to be shelter. There's always going to be ways that we can make it look like natural light, and I suppose it forces us even then more creatively to like find a little pocket of light inside or something that we might not have seen had it been a nice wedding day. But yeah, I think you mentioned like something when we were driving here, like about people and about like just like that kind of like side of things.
Yeah, my challenge is more about just, I want to make people happy. So my challenge is as quickly as possible to build rapport with every single person. So obviously we build rapport with bride and groom beforehand anyway, but now we're like, okay, we have to do that 10 times faster with, you know, the groomsmen and the bridesmaids, and you have to try and build up that rapport and kind of build up that banter straight away. So for me, that's why I know I can leave a wedding day when I kind of think, oh, I could chat to any single person in this room and actually build up actually good banter with them. Then I know, yeah, that's for me. Like the photos are for me personally second, because I know I can do that. I can do that very just like snap away, I'm done. But the relationship thing for me, Teeny is much more of the extrovert than I would be. So it's much more of I want to make sure I'm putting much more of an effort into that. And even sometimes I feel like on a wedding day, I like to almost be half a photographer, half like a manager on the wedding day. Like I want to make sure that their timings are right and getting them right. I want to carry their drinks for them and bringing them out, you know, in between like family photos and stuff. I want to do that and make them feel super comfortable and make them know that we're kind of on their side. Sometimes photographers can kind of get given bad raps, like, oh, they took us for hours. And I kind of want to make sure that we kind of, I know, not making them feel like we're doing that, you know, like, and kind
help
of
things move along.
Yeah, help things move along and help them always enjoy it. Sometimes people think, oh, family photos are so boring, they're so dull. Well, okay, well, how can we make that as enjoyable as possible so that they never feel like it's boring? So just keeping it fun. That's my biggest challenge, basically, for me.
I think that is one thing we did notice about your wedding, definitely, is whenever we got to the venue, we were sort of like, oh, it's time for photos. We're going to be away here for like an hour or something, and we were down for, was it 10 minutes or not even like?
Maybe it just felt like 10 minutes in our presence. It was just...
But is that something you do try and do, is make it seem as seamless? Like obviously people don't want to be standing around taking photos all day. Well, maybe some people do, but is that something you sort of aim for?
I'm listening all the time. Like one of the last ones, I'm listening to every conversation in the back of my mind, being like, I can hear murmurs. I wonder if they're bad murmurs, so I'll constantly be aware of that and looking at the time, constantly I'll even set mini 1 minute timers, 2 minute timers. I get a buzz, so I know it's been this long, so I'm constantly aware of what's going on, because I just want to make sure everyone's you're less so, because you're just too busy like chat and having fun and having great fun. And most of the time girls don't have the same sort of thinking. Guys just like, I don't like photos, I want to go and have a drink and hang out. So I just are wary of that. So I know that I can get quicker photos with that, and so that's
do you remember we did have a couple really recently, well, maybe within the last few years, who specifically were like, no, we want you to take us away for lots of time, but actually in the nicest way possible. They were like, actually we are going to be really nervous on our wedding day and loads of people around. Like when you're just an introvert, sometimes you're like, I actually don't want to be around all these people that are going to be at my wedding. So in the nicest way possible, they were like, no, could you guys make sure that
they
we
actually
are
weren't
gone?
at the venue for a while. They went from the church to like another place, and they just sat with a bottle of champagne on the road, just chilled for like an hour. Like we were at the venue, and the venue was like, where are they? We're like, I don't know. Like I literally have no idea. And they turn up later, and I was like, fair play.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Do what you got to do, man.
Because I don't think anything purely preps you for that day. Like I know there was minutes where I just looked around, Lucinda wasn't there. I was like, where has she been taken? She's going off talking to some auntie or some cousin who she's very rarely met. And you're going, right, come back. And then the actual photos were the time where we look back at and go, that was time with just us.
Time together.
So it is like, it's just a stressful day. I can't imagine, because obviously, like for your guys' perspective, in my head, I'm going, you know, you're capturing once in a lifetime moments, and like they're so, when you do receive an album or you receive all them photos and looking at it, you realize how precious that stuff is.
For sure.
So like, I suppose you kind of alluded to it there, Christine, like over time, how do you like cope with the challenges off that, or the pressure? Like how, because obviously at the start you were saying you were throwing up before dinner, but like how do you sort of, looking at it now, how do you cope with all that?
So I think like the amount of years we've been doing this and the amount of weddings and different circumstances we've just been faced with, like you grow and you learn from each one. So like now we're at a point where we could definitely be like, any situation that arises, like we could probably do it with our eyes closed. But like that whole high pressure thing, I think it is just going, I think there's an element of fake it till you make it. So like you never show that kind of element. Like I shouldn't show that I'm stressed about like the circumstance in front of me, and actually just keep rolling through. Cause like for me, I'm all about feeling. So I'm always like, I want the people in front of me to feel a certain way, to feel like obviously stress-free and happy and chill. So if I can kind of help them feel that way, then we're not going to worry so much about like the actual externals that are going on. And then because wedding days there's big things that you've got to capture and you've got to do this. But I think that we just like, we flow with the format, and then everything else that like arises in front of us, we're just like, cool, this is what we're going to roll with.
Yeah. Just face everything head on, basically.
Yeah. Lean into it.
Lean into it. You're going to have to do it one way or the other anyway. So if you think you overthink it, you'll probably freak yourself out. Kind of like a brain surgeon who's been doing it 20 odd years. They're not going to be going in the same way they were first. You know, they're going to be whistling and playing music, and if they start getting into their heads, I suppose could make it worse. So
what for couples who are like the likes of Tommy, who's about to get married, or you in the future
someday?
Yes.
What's some of the advice that you would give to? What's some of the do's and don'ts that you would give to people who are about to get married? Aaron, you're getting married in May.
Woohoo.
Listen closely.
Let's
But
go.
like from your 15 years off experience, like what are some of the things that you would tell a bride and groom to be?
I think like we often, even when we're first chatting with a couple, it's normally at the very beginning of their process. And even though like we're actually sitting there obviously going like, hey, you might want to book us. But a lot of the time, obviously people are at the beginning of their budget. They're at the beginning of those things. And we often will say like, have your top 3-4 priority things that you are like, this is my non-negotiable. And beyond that, like, I think be creative with like who you choose, how you choose it. Because I think for one thing, budget is like, it's all for one day. And we've seen weddings done in so many different kinds of ways. So I think that, I don't know, the most authentic ways to do it is to like have your definites that you want to go for, and then like let go of a lot of the rest. And I think even just watching friends currently or over the last few years going through weddings, you just see so much of the stress that goes into one day. And so you're often like trying to remind people like, hey, make sure to like take a breath and like actually remember you're just wanting to get married. You're wanting to marry your best friend. So don't start hating each other during the process, like where things are so stressful. Because I think if you're doing like DIY weddings, like there's a lot to do. So that would be my main kind of things, like prioritize your budgets, and actually like for the actual day itself, like let go of a lot of the things that the day after the wedding, most people will go, shouldn't really have cared so much about that.
Yeah, I think mine's kind of similar. Mine's an overlap. So I think the vendors you pick, especially the ones that are going to be with you on the day and you're going to see a bit of, pick the ones you like. Like pick the ones you like. That's the most important thing. If you're not sure you're going to get gelling with them and they're with you all the time, like it's not going to be worth it, even if they're a bit cheaper. Do you know what I mean? It's just not worth it. Yeah. Doesn't matter who it is, even like managers from hotels, all that stuff, it really matters. And then like Tini said, with you and your spouse on the wedding day, it's going to be so important. We've seen weddings with massive budgets, weddings with really small budgets. It matters nothing on how good the wedding day is, because it only matters about them too. And if they're having fun together and they're enjoying themselves, that will make up for anything that could go wrong on a wedding day. And anything you've bought, no matter the shoes, the cakes, anything, even photography, videography, it doesn't matter. If you've had fun on the day with your spouse, that you can't take that away. And that's the most important things really, is that you enjoy the planning together, you enjoy the wedding day together, and you communicate all the issues very early on, quickly.
Yeah. So. I have to ask, do you have any stories of wedding days that have just...
You've already have one of mine.
Oh yeah, just
have one. I did shoot. This was a while ago. Okay, so no one can hold me to it. I did shoot half a wedding in the wrong format. So most people that listeners won't know, but you meant to shoot weddings in RAW, and I shot half the wedding in JPEGs. But it was fine because I actually shot them pretty well, so they were never going to notice. But for me, instant panic.
Both, I remember the moment where you were just looking through your camera and being like,
to do. I panicked. I have no idea what to do. I probably ruined their wedding day, and it was absolutely fine.
Yeah.
So,
we didn't.
That was like 10 years ago. So it was fine. It was fine. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So.
Do you know, there are just like, I think we always see lots of little things go wrong. Like I'm so thankful to say we've never had because that is a favorite question of people. They'll be like, oh, tell us about bridezillas. Thankfully, we don't attract bridezillas.
No.
But Oh, I remember we had a morning and I was doing some photos of the girls before we left the house. And then the bridesmaid, who was the sister, accidentally stood on the dress, but on the grass, and it went right through, made a hole, as well as just a nice wee grass stain. And it was a very, like, very just simple dress that you weren't going to be like, don't worry, you can't see it. It was like, oh, we can see it.
Yeah, you can see it.
So she had to go to like the, what's it called? Dry cleaners? Yeah, she had to go to the dry cleaners, like via there on her way to the ceremony.
Yep.
And like other brides who've had like nosebleed before the ceremony, like drips onto the dress. So a same thing, like most of the time.
I gave a bride a cocktail. She asked for it, but I gave it to it was bright red, and she wasn't really paying attention and spilled it all down her. And I laughed because I thought it was funny. She didn't laugh. She was mortified, and I just had to kind of just walk away because I wasn't how to deal with it after that. We had, you know, when they give the flowers out to mother of the brides, and they gave the flowers out, they rested them down on candles, and the whole thing erupted in flames.
Oh my!
I was right there, but I was just photographing. You
didn't warn anybody.
They mentioned it in the prayer just for the end as well about me not helping. So that happened. We've had grooms guys forgetting shoes, thinking the groom was going to get shoes, and he didn't, and he thought there was a joke, and it wasn't. So they had to go via shops and had to get them to open up because they weren't open yet to get shoes. Just
one time, I got stuck in a car park. So like Belfast City wedding, and like they were, I thought I was so smart too because I'd parked right opposite the hotel, and I was like, this is so logically good. I didn't realize Gay Pride was on. So I went up into the car park, tried to come out, and they were like, no, this is locked. I was like, for how long? They were like, oh, for the next few hours. Oh my God. So I'm sitting in my car going, well, the bride's already in her car. She's already on her way. And only that I think I was able to I went back to the hotel, and the bride's dad was like, no worries, go back to your car. So I went back, and then I later found out that he was a policeman, so he was able to just call in a few favors, and I got out of it. But honestly, do you know what? Like, it was one of those where I was just on the phone to you being like, so I guess you're going to photograph the rest of the wedding by yourself today. So disasters happen, but man, nothing that has made us lose our job so far.
No, nothing like that. Nothing crazy.
I think looking at I want to touch on the industry itself. Because I know we even talking to Tommy the other week, there's so many people, there's so many options when it comes to photography, and I know like you guys sort of offering video as another service as well. Yeah. So like when it comes to that, looking at that industry, like how do you guys deal with what seems to be like recently like an influx of everybody has a camera there now? Then it's easy to get into wedding photography. So how do you guys kind of deal with that? I want to say oversaturation, but like just a vast number of options that people have when they're planning a wedding.
I think we've always had the same mentality, because even when we first began, I feel like it was the same. Like it was kind of at a stage where people were starting to get their own cameras, and there was lots of people coming out on the scene. New
wave of digital cameras.
Yeah. And I think that like we always had that same thing where we were like, well, our style for one isn't going to be everybody's style. So we were like, we're okay. Like we're okay. Even if we have a video call with someone, like we were very much like, this is how we do things. If you don't like it, please choose someone else. Like that's like, we don't take offense. We want you to find the right person. And I think that still stands now. Like we're very much believe that like every couple that we've ever had, like it's meant to be. Like it's one of those things where there's a right photographer for everyone, and even if it is based on budget, if it's based on personality, if it's based on style, like I think that we've just had to be very relaxed with that thing of like we have no control over like who else wants to become photographers, videographers, and we don't claim to kind of be like, oh, no, you need to book us over anyone else. Like I think that for us, we've always just tried to like stand firm on the integrity of like how we do things. If trends come, we don't necessarily jump on them, and that maybe like we can look back over the years and go, oh, maybe we should have jumped on that one. But at the same time, when a couple finds us and they say, oh, like in the wave of people that I've seen and I finally find what I'm looking for, we're like, okay, that's reason enough for us to stay true to who we are, how we've done things. And I guess we have to just like trust that. We have to trust that process.
Yeah. The only thing that I noticed is that I think personality matters more than I thought it did. So we've had couples that we've had calls and they've said, hey, you know, we've had reservations, but after meeting you guys, like we were all in, and we kind of thought, oh, that's mental that they see photos and that's enough to draw them in, but actually it's the personality that brings it. And it's not saying we're nice people, so book us. It's more saying that we're the only two people that can be like us. So we're the only personalities like us. So how do we bring that out more so, and where can we bring that out more so? And we know that people will book us for us sometimes over our photos, and I'm happy with that. So yeah, that's what we can really lean on sometimes.
Yeah.
Would you say like the industry has sort of changed since you have started? Like, to me, maybe 15 years ago, a wedding photographer would have maybe just set a camera up and literally took photos, whereas what you guys are doing is more of like, as you're saying, it's your style and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen the industry change much over the years of your time doing it?
For sure we have. I think that like when we first came on the scene, it was like changing from the photographers that you would have seen on the high street. So they would have had a shop front. There was almost like one guy who like owned that town. It was very territorial. And then we kind of came in with like a bunch, like we're still really good friends with like all the people that we started with. Yeah. And I don't know, like at that stage, it was just like it was enough to take photos, throw them online and be like, that's our shop front. Whereas like we've noticed, especially over like the past 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever years, like just that thing of like social media especially has obviously changed. And that's the thing for us, that in our industry, that's the biggest like game changer. Where for us, we have like gone like, we're still kind of just like throwing things up, or had been just throwing things up, going like, it'll be fine, people will still see our thing. But like there's such a wave of like, it's not enough. Like people do, like Xander said actually earlier, like people, they buy into the brand and they buy into the person who's doing it. So it wasn't enough to just go, here's my photo. It was more of a, you really need to be like showing your face and showing like your process and showing behind the scenes and showing all of those kind of things, which like it's a busy business thing to like to have on top of business.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any sort of other like photographers and stuff that stand out for you that maybe don't have the same style as you, but sort of interest you and that you kind of like their work?
Funnily, we like, so when we were first beginning, we would have followed photographers and videographers and like friends or like people from America going, they're like the front runners. And I think over the years, we've unfollowed, not out of like, I shouldn't follow you anymore, but like it's one of those classic things of like weddings are weddings are weddings, and like if your feed is just full of that. So my answer is yes, absolutely. Like there are so many photographers, either people that we've known for a long time and respected and just like, wow, they're like game changers. Like we have friends who've gone into like the elopement industry who like we just watch them going like, you got on that, cool. And
like
you've
niched down.
Niched down.
Yeah. You are the elopement photographer.
Yeah. Right. And like doing it so well. And then
all our friends. You got the Loos, like we grew up with them, basically started with them. We were these little people together. We're doing photography, we're doing weddings together, and you've got Grace and Adam, and they do a completely different style. They've got like editorial style, and they're doing a completely amazing thing. But I think it's a friendship, Gather and Tide. They're friends as opposed to anything. Yeah. There's a guy that I follow. I'm part of his Patreon. This guy called Sam Hurd. Very much like a uber creative, but really smart creative. Like he'll be using projectors and mirrors and things like that to try and things that maybe go, that'd be fun to try. Yeah. Fun things to have a go on that would make weddings just that bit more special for me, even on a wedding day, just that bit more. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's all good. We both have the answers.
I think we always look around at photography and other stuff. I mean, we flew our photographers in from America, so we've looked outwards, but I really love looking inwards and looking at our friends. Like, I think actually we've unfollowed like photography for a while, but actually we started following people again just because we actually want to see what our friends are up to. Yeah. We want to see what they're doing and supporting them as well. I think
it was just more at a time where like social media, we came off it personally just for lots of different reasons. And then you just like, that's a big thing within this business to be like, like I said, that is the front runner of your business. And so you really have to like reconsider that and reconsider how much like you're putting into it rather than just going like, it's enough to just like exist within it.
That's definitely not the case anymore. So
yeah, I think it's cool to hear the response of you are sure that what you're doing is the right thing for you guys and you're standing by that, because a lot of people could have pivoted and jumped on trends, and then you do get lost in the crowd. And I think what's cool especially about the industry that you guys are in, is that obviously social media and the marketing side of it's probably took off, and a lot of people are finding their photographers through Instagram. And that's fine, but a lot of it is word of mouth still. I mean, if you are getting married and you're going to be inevitably speaking to people who have been on that journey and, oh, who did you get for your photography? Oh, I had such and such. And you almost rely, because it's like, well, if they were happy, well, I'm going to go with them. Whereas 100%. Like it or like it not, you may see nice photos on Instagram, but you don't know what it's like behind the scenes, whether they're potentially stressful to work with or, so I think it's refreshing that you guys kind of stick to that. I think that's probably, what stead you throughout these years in terms of, standing out from the crowd. So it's cool. I suppose looking at more I wanted to ask you about venues.
Yes.
So for people planning, venues is another big one. And obviously throughout 15 years, I'm sure you have been to your fair share of Northern Ireland venues and over Ireland in itself. Mm-hmm. Is there any some underrated venues? Are there any venues that you think when it come up on paper, you're like, happy days?
Oh, underrated. Well, do you know, I think Xander mentioned this earlier about like the managers really like making a place, and I think we remember that almost above kind of like, oh, the grounds were really cool. And so I think like it's not even that these are underrated places, but there's like Macromore, and like I know that the guys there are just like, they're so professional, yet they're so like, I think just when an inquiry comes through and someone says it, we're like, you're going to be so well looked after there. And it's a joy for us to get to show up to that same place. And like Ballyscullion Park, like that's still a firm favorite. Like we shot it, it must have been 2020 during like the whole COVID thing. I think Nala, our youngest, was like 11 days old. And we remember like being there with her shooting a wedding. And then we came back a few years later and they were like, oh, hey guys, we remember you. And we're like, that's amazing that just, they're so personable.
Staff, not just the managers, like the bar staff and everything. Everyone remembered. It's just like flip.
Yeah, just, there are a lot of venues. And I think that our favorite ones are always going to be the ones that just make you like, I don't know, just they look after their people and not just the bride and groom. They kind of go like, no, we see all the people in the background and and go above and beyond.
Yeah, that's really it. I think Tini said it. Like I think for us, every venue can be good. That's the funny thing. Even the worst hotel you could possibly imagine in the world could actually be a great venue if you're thinking creatively. You can make everything look good. So that's why it always comes to second. It's always like, what are the people like? Are they actually nice? Are they too fussy? We know what they're like because we see behind. Like when we're photographing, say for instance, the room before anyone's in it, we hear how they talk to their staff. We hear how they encourage. One of the last weddings, they were talking about how nice the couple were. They're like, oh, the couple are really nice. You're going to really enjoy them. This is the best menu we've seen all year. This is going to be like, and I hear all that. I'm like, oh, I remember those wedding venues just because of the managers and the way the staff are. Yeah. So again, pick people. That's the most important thing. So
outside of, do you have something?
I was just going to say, I suppose the opposite end of that question then is there any sort of venues that you'd maybe sort of tell people to stay away from? I know you don't maybe want to do that. But do
you know, I don't think we've ever been in a position to have to do that.
No.
And like, I suppose, funnily, recently, I feel like, so I'm like, it was me. Please no, I'm not conflict. I'm not a conflict person, but I feel like I had a run-in with a manager. But it was a day where we had been going above and beyond. Like they were very big on timing, and we were like, no problem, sir. Like we kept on it, and there was just a wee air of snippiness, and there was things. So I would have been like, oh, Xander, they've spoken to me like this, and you were very like, do you know what? Probably the wrong moment, like wrong time, wrong place. But things like that stick with me to go, and I'm not going to name and shame, but I do like. I would never go, oh, don't go there. And the thing is, again, like they treated the bride and groom perfectly. Like there's just things, I think managing people, it matters. Like relationships are huge. And that would be something that even like with other vendors, I think probably more, again, like Xander said, back in the day with like friends, like so even photographer friends, there would have just been that like, oh, that place, like, you know, this is how they treat people, not so good. And like that matters because like we might not personally tell people to avoid places, but I think there's probably other people who gladly, would say, nah, stay away from there.
Yeah.
Agree with your point on the people. Like it does, like when you're going into that day, it's such a full-on experience, and there's so many moving parts that it really is. You do want to rely on people to just, even little things, I think, like resonate with me. When I look back at our wedding day, it was little simple things like not we were standing in the church, and I was like, where I wonder where, and then you were like, oh, I'm actually tracking Christine at the minute. She's leaving now, and I was like, okay, so Lucinda's going to be here soon. She hasn't fled the country. And then even little things like, you know, even you took my wallet in the church. I had my wallet. I don't know why I had my wallet on me that day because I didn't buy anything. And you were just like, throw it in my bag, and I was like, thank you. And then even little things like the drivers, you know, we really did pick good people. And when you look back at it now, you're like, God, you guys made this so stress-free.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about that. I think you're always going to go into a wedding nervous as such.
What was the wallet thing? Is that just to stop like pocket bulge when you're taking photos?
Yeah.
Is that why?
Yeah.
You do that? Oh, right.
No, it's because he wants to like see if there's any money, and I like tip for me.
No, honestly, I turn my bag. Yeah, literally turn my bag around. So anyone putting things in there, like keys.
I actually took the wedding rings like not that long ago, and like honestly, the best man was eyeing me up like, you better not run. I was like, what am I gonna do? I'm not gonna run.
It's funny seeing people's hesitation. They're like, you can't try. I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'm with you all day. I'm not going anywhere. And they're like, yeah.
Actually, though, like on that people thing, like not that long ago, we were shooting a wedding. And there was some like bad transaction going on between like the car people and the bride and groom, where they were like demanding the money before they left the ceremony. And they were like, oh, okay, like you didn't tell us this beforehand. And then it had to be in euros and it had to be like in cash. And the bride and groom are going, where are we going to go get, like, but it was very like, there was no like, do you know what, drop it in tomorrow. Like, do you know, it was just, it was this really awkward, like, this is the middle of the, and why not even go and talk to like the dad or someone different? Like, why are you involving the bride in this, like, just a bit of a ridiculous conversation?
It was a bad taste in your
Yes.
mouth. They just got married, literally within like half an hour of leaving the church venue.
Right.
It's like
unnecessary.
bad moment.
There's 5 mile of diesel in this car. We need to swing by.
You could have picked a better moment for that, but
yeah, things like that.
I think it's less about telling people don't go there. They really mean. I think that if someone said, "Oh, we're picking this venue," like, "Oh my word, they are so nice. Every staff member is so nice. They're so lovely to us." That makes people go, "Oh, nice." That's much more of an encouragement rather than trashing another place.
Yeah.
They didn't realize how much more excited they are for the venue when they hear other vendors bigging up that venue.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than that, because then it feels like one big kind of family where everyone just loves each other. Like, where's some venues we turn up, we're hugging them when we see them. But it's like other venues, and we see videographers or photographers and we're like giving them hugs when we see them. It's other people seeing them. Oh, you actually are friends. It isn't like a colleagues and acquaintances.
Yeah.
And florists and stuff like that. Yeah, and cake guys and So
outside of wedding photography, you aren't just wedding photographers.
Yeah.
I did have a little, because obviously as we were prepping for this and seeing like you guys do like everything from like home births. I seen that, which I thought was
Oh, it's my
wild.
favorite. If I could be solely a home birth photographer, like anyone out there having a
it
baby.
was either that or midwife. So this is the perfect.
Do you know
balance
what?
to kind
I think like I've had 3 kids, loved the experience, but like then actually getting to be present for other people. Now, the first that I did get to shoot was like a sister-in-law. So I was like huge privilege, managed to make it to England like within 4 hours, like the right amount of time to actually see the baby come.
She got on a 9 o'clock flight, got to the house at midnight. She gave birth at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So literally, it was
in the water, so good.
It was, awesome.
And then another friend just really like close around the corner. So I was like, oh, like I think over the next few years, it's that kind of thing that I'd be like, I would love to hone in on that like more and more. Because you can, like, again, you can niche down into things. Whereas at the minute, we're kind of like dipping our toe in different areas and seeing like, okay, what's going to work for us as a family? Yeah. Because Saturdays are busy for families with like football and all other things that go on, and we want to be around for that. So it's kind of good to have the midweek options too. Yeah.
You mentioned when we obviously reached out to you guys, the wedding sort of, you know, asking you about this year in terms of like the wedding season and I suppose business. You did kind of sort of preface that it was like, it's not the most busiest. Can you elaborate on that in terms of, because obviously for business owners, that can seem from the outset, when you're saying that, I'm going, oh, wow. But like, what, can you delve into that a wee bit more?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose the first thing to say is it doesn't mean it's the industry as a whole. I know that the looking and reading at stuff, I know that the industry is in areas like collectively is maybe dipped a little bit, but I wouldn't say that necessarily our friends are necessarily finding the same thing that we are. But I think from the research from that guy Sam Hurd that I mentioned, he actually did like some statistic stuff on it, that actually COVID had much more of a delayed reaction. So I thought if we survive COVID, we'll be fine. And we've actually had probably more weddings during COVID than we had this year which is kind of weird. But I think there was a bit of a delay in terms of things like relationships, like not forming. Like we had couples that in their speeches were saying, we just got together and then we were told to bubble, and we just said, should we just give it a shot and just see what happens? And they took the chance and it paid off. Some people probably took the chance, it didn't pay off. Some people thought, nah, I just won't do it. So relationships didn't form. Obviously, a couple of years of not dating and clubbing and all those things, even couples that were maybe starting to move in together instead of getting married because of all the restrictions, and they may not have lasted, or they decided, let's just not bother getting married, let's save up and have a big party or things like that. And then the ones that we were doing were like small ones, elopements, little intimate things. So collectively, I think that's been a aspect. And then another one, which I've been thinking about over the last little while, is that, so I think I'm going on for a while now, but when you were talking about this, about word of mouth, and for us, that was the biggest part. We just made so many connections on the day. We'd get a load of inquiries from each wedding. It was brilliant. It worked really well. And then we found that we were obviously shooting quite a lot of weddings. We started having kids, and we thought, I don't think we can do this. I don't think it's fair on our kids to go shooting 40 weddings a year. We didn't have proper babysitters. My family were all in England, so it was a lot more strain on Teeny's side to do babysitting. So we thought, let's cut our weddings. But obviously, income-wise, we need to up our pricing a bit. So we did that. But that was change our demographic. So the demographic was actually bringing us more down south. That was where more income was, that you found that there were more couples that had that sort of expenditure money. And that meant they were slightly older, and they were the ones spending all their money, so they didn't have parents paying the wedding, so they could do that. And then what that meant was our pool of people that would have gone to the weddings were a little bit older too. So a lot of those would have already been married. A lot of those would have already... And I didn't really notice it. And it was kind of like, everything was kind of... And there must have been a line that we just crossed over, that if I'd have thought about it, we'd be like, okay, right, we need to step back again. But we didn't. We just thought, great, we're shooting less weddings, we're still making the same amount of money, brilliant. And because, like Teeny said, that's the one trend we didn't jump on, was social media. We just didn't, because we got all our word of mouth. We didn't need to spend the time doing it. We didn't want to use social media. We weren't on it. We came off from 2016. We haven't been personally on social media for a long time. So we're like, who needs it? But that was a mistake on our part, because we were doing two things in the opposite direction. So I think that is where I'm like, oh, okay. And that's where we're starting to try and pivot back and kind of go, what can we do? How can we bring ourselves back into the foreground of showing ourselves on social media, doing podcasts and things like this? How can we bring ourselves forward a little bit, but the way that we would do it, not just throwing ourselves into doing whatever everyone else is doing.
You probably have quite a good, strong position, because if you've been off social media you're coming back to it now, you probably aren't aware of a lot of the stuff that's not been sucked into a lot of them trends. So you are coming back at it purely from creative side and going, we're just going to do us on this platform, which 100%. In turn is probably getting used to stand out more from, there's probably hundreds of using photographers and as an example going, I really like what that guy's doing, so I'm going to go out and do the same thing that he's doing and take pictures at the same location, and they're struggling to kind of stand out, whereas you guys have kind of come back after that break almost, and you have a fresh sort of spin on it that other people probably haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, I think we had we definitely had at the start of this year specifically, we had kind of felt the slow decline for a while, but we were but we're so sure that we're still meant to be in this business. Photography is what we love, and yes, we might expand kind of into home births or families or business or corporate. We can do all those things, but we were we're not ready to give up weddings yet. We just love the people too much. We love just what we get to do on a day. So we were okay, well, if in another couple of years we were just that's it, no one books us ever again, okay, at least we know that we've kind of given it a proper shot with social media. And so we kind of went, okay, fresh vision, how do we want to do things? And again, driven again more by you were again, I'm not going to do what other people do, I don't care. And so it's always that thing of weddings can get that kind of ooh, it's so serious, it's so I don't know, there's
quite
just
romantic, which is not necessarily how we are. People might write poems or write about the
you mean in the captions
and I was just nah, that's just not, I don't think that's us. Maybe a bit more you, but it's just not me. Mine's smash
in your
of
face,
color, in your face, sarcastic, maybe even a bit rude, a bit cheeky.
Yeah.
I actually follow a lot of people on social media that are all marketing things. Like there's a cereal brand called Cereal.
Yeah.
You haven't seen them? It's just
Is that the like protein?
Yeah.
yes, epic.
Brilliant.
Love
Silly.
it. I save literally nearly all their posts
Yeah.
because they just make me laugh. And
Your guy from the Silk Bang ad.
yes,
I was seeing
Yeah.
that the other day.
It just makes me laugh. So if you ever go into ours now and you look at it, you'll be like, oh, I can see the inspiration. It's
Yeah.
just that it's actually less photos sometimes, more text, but
Yeah.
it's just more just showing a bit of personality and having
it's trying
fun
to,
with
like-
it, just having fun.
It's trying to like grab attention so that
Yeah.
then again, if someone lands on our page, they're either going to go, oh, I get a vibe for what they're like.
Yeah.
And then honestly, like someone else might land on it and go, nope, not for me. And that's okay.
No, I would say, yeah, I think you're right, because I would say that the moment photography trends would be maybe different coloring to maybe how we do it, a little bit more editorial, a little bit more
Very elegant.
a little more elegant. So that's not necessarily us. So it's really nice to be, I think you already said it, Ross, you know, when you try to be like everyone else, you're going to be like everyone else. Whereas you have to stand out for something so that people can go straight in and be like, no, or, oh, yes.
Yeah.
Like they'll stand out.
Yeah.
That's all we're trying to do, but in our way. So
And we're having fun with it.
we are having fun.
We
with
were
it.
like, if we're going to have to do it, if we have to spend a bit of time on social media, then we might as well enjoy creating the content that we're putting out there.
yeah, and again, if in 18 months it doesn't work, we know that we've done us, and
Yeah.
it's just not been the way.
Yeah.
That's okay. We had a good 15 years. So,
Yeah.
see?
Yeah. And so I suppose, like, looking at it, you seem to obviously know a lot about where you stand within that industry, and obviously changing your pricing and moving to more sort of towards another market and what that's done for the brand. So looking at how you're approaching the business now, what are sort of the steps that you're, because obviously you have 3 kids.
Oh, yeah.
You need income.
That's
So
right.
how are you looking at outside of weddings? How are you pivoting your business to try and...
Well, Teeny's definitely doing more family shoots because you've always done them, you've loved them, and it's something that actually we're trying to find things that we can do separately too, because it relieves like babysitters and stuff, and it actually saves the kids having like bye mum and dad again, here you go again, and it's not needed. There's a lot of times that we're not both needed for that. Christine is completely capable of shooting she could shoot a wedding on her own, and the thing is we probably will start doing that a little bit more because we find that actually maybe couples are like, I'd love to have you two, but I really, really can't afford it. Well, then just have one of us. That's fine. For us, we were so determined to keep it that way, and I'm glad that we stuck to that and we put that. But at the moment, let's just see what happens. When we're experimenting and seeing that, so you do that, you're doing birth stuff. I'm doing property, so I'm doing property with my dad. So we've just finished a house, working on another house, and hopefully building another house as well, and then ones will be Airbnb. So I want to try something different.
Oh, actually, property investment, not like property photography.
Oh, no property investment.
Oh, right.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Like I get a bit bored just doing one thing. So if
Yeah.
I can do lots of different things, I'm going to do lots of different things. And if I can do some weddings, and I can do some property, and I can do some commercial stuff, and I can do some video stuff, and like I love podcast stuff, you know, like if I could do lots of different things, that would keep me very happy. I know that would
Less
drive
so.
me insane. But for me, it's just how many things I can do because I enjoy them. I love doing building stuff. I love doing trade stuff. It's a completely different thing to wedding photography.
Yeah, and I think we realized that for so long we relied on weddings as like our financial income. Like you said, like it was you could look at the year ahead and go, sweet, we have 25 weddings, like we're great. And like now we're going like, actually, if we take away the fear of going like, we need X amount of weddings and go, we definitely want to still do them, and we definitely can't give up 25 weekends in a year. So then it's going, well, actually, let's really enjoy the weddings that we do get to do, but then yes, completely like offset the rest with just the other business things that we've been dipping our toe into. And it's kind of taken away a lot of the shame of like, oh no, like is business failing, rather than going, actually, this is such an amazing opportunity to go, great, weddings, still give it our all. Like any kind of photography or videography that we do, we're always going to do it with excellence, but then like just not having to rely so heavily on it as our one and only.
Yeah, I just would wish that we wouldn't have to, if we could just get to a place where weddings, if we didn't have any weddings, we'd be fine. I think we'd actually probably end up shooting more weddings and having way more fun, because there's no thoughts of the stress of money.
Yeah.
It's just like, we'd shoot them anyway, shoot them for free, because it'd just be so much fun to do that.
A lot of people that we've had on the podcast particularly, I suppose you're in a very small group of people we've had on who have been in business for so long. We get a lot of people on who've just started businesses maybe 18 months in, they all kind of come out with the same thing, which is like, this could all end tomorrow, but at least I've gave it a good shot. And do you guys feel a sense of pressure because you have done it for so long, 15 years, that almost like you're saying, in 18 months, at least we give it a good shot. But do you guys feel a sense of pressure that you've been doing it for so long where, say, it doesn't go the way you want it? Like how does that affect you guys in terms of?
I think we battled that for the past 3 or 4 years, as we've kind of noticed this, and we've kind of gone are we still meant to be? And I think that there's such a love of what we do that's always going to be the driver within that. And so I think that it was actually a lot of it was accepting it and going, well, actually, it is okay. Some things do just come to natural ends. And instead of then having complete fear that well, that's it. And I think, I don't know, most people can just say to us, would you not just go and get a day job? And I would say, sure, we can. And we're not too proud to go, I'd gladly go and get a job if that's what it took to feed my family. But I think that we just know that our job, we really can get work from a lot of different avenues within it. So in the past year, we were able to approach schools and be hey, can we do some content for you guys? Or other businesses that they need a lot of social media content. And although we might not be amazing at doing our own social media, we can be let us do stuff for you. And so it's been really fun to go, actually, we know this is what we're meant to be doing in some capacity, the creativity and we're just not made at this point in life for a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
And stepping away from self-employment.
Yeah, I think for me it's more business elements. I love business, and all day long I could talk to people that are just starting new businesses and have a lot of fun talking about it because there is a buzz about it and it's exciting. So I think for me it was less about giving up weddings, more I don't want our business to fail. I don't want it to fail. I want it to go well, and I'll research everything I can about marketing and branding and everything to give it its best shot. But like you said, we have to just accept the fact that this is what's been happening, and then surrender to whatever's going to happen after that. Give it our best shot, not be lazy, work hard, do your best, and then see what happens from there. And that's really the long and short of it. I don't want to give it up. 15 years is a long time to be doing it, and it would be a real shame to have to bow out of that because it's just not feasible. But I don't think it's going to go that way. I don't think it's going to go that way. I love business and I like solving problems. So just keep solving problems. Yeah.
And I think one of the cool things about you guys is obviously you are business partners, but you're also married.
People on a wedding day are are you two dating? And we're we're married.
Yeah.
Wondering why Xander's touching my butt. I'm
I did do that a lot. We just saw you were very hands. Yes. No, we are married.
This guy, what a bold boy. But looking at that dynamic is interesting for, say, people listening who are starting businesses with their partners or their other half. We had a relationship coach on, Lisa, recently, and she talks a lot about, she started a business with her husband, and that obviously had its own set of problems that they didn't notice. So how do you guys juggle personal relationship and business?
Do you know what? It's going to sound very arrogant, pretty easily, but that's only because of how. So we were 18 when we met, and we got married at 22. We had a kid by 25, and so we've actually been with each other. And really, since I moved over at 19, we've basically lived with each other. So we've been in each other's pockets for so long now.
Yeah,
we're so comfortable with everything. We know we just nothing's ever off the table. So we're always communicating every silly thing. Usually it's me, and usually I'm probably wrong as well in my feelings and thoughts about it, but it doesn't matter because we're actually talking about it. So juggling business, actually there hasn't been too many. No, there's the normal gripes that you might have,
like creative differences.
Some creative differences, or even just, I think it's less about a business thing. It's more about your mood on the day of business. It might be like walking into a normal job and your boss telling you something, or your manager, and if you're just annoyed, anything they're going to say, you're just going to want to punch them in the face. Is that kind of feeling?
Punch me in the face?
So it's more like that. And there has been times where we're driving from the church to the venue, we have an argument on the way, we're fuming, but as soon as we open that door, it smiles on. We get over it, and then literally, and we actually get on with the job. And you know what? After an hour or two, we look at each other from across the room, and we just say I love you, and then that's it. We move on, or we walk past each other, touch, it's done. Because it's never a big thing. It's just a bicker. It's just a silly little thing.
I think that's it. Like, it's just like our relationship has been like, we do everything together. Like, one of my sisters is like, you brush your teeth together. We're like, yeah.
At the same time,
like,
not the same toothbrush. At the same time.
But just like, I think that we just enjoy each other's company. That's helpful. But yes, it's more like there's creative differences, or like I'm slightly more controlling than you. Would that be right? And like, so there's things like, I think on the day it's fine because we both have room and space to, like, you get to do your thing, I get to do mine. And so there's a real good like bounce off each other kind of thing. And we really enjoy that. And that's probably why we've stuck for so long being like, no, we come as a duo. But then it's more like after the wedding day when we're editing and I'll be like over Xander's shoulder, like, oh, is that what you're doing with that shot there? And then like, I'll like pretend to tweak it and then it'll end up that it actually looks exactly the same. But I've just had my say in it, you know, that kind of thing. Those are the things we probably annoy each other with more so. But yeah, I think that you've said it, like the communication is key in it. That if something is just annoying, then like get it out there, talk it through and move on and compromise. Hey.
Oh yeah, and compromise.
Would you say there's any competition between you, like on the day, to see who can maybe get the better shot? Or
not on the day, but there are definitely days that I've left and I've like got nothing. You know? Or like I look at Tini's photos and I'll be like, oh, crap, mine is so worse and yours are so much better than
Or else
mine.
it's when we're picking the sneak peeks and you're like, oh, 10 of your own shots, Christine?
Your shot, your shot, your shot, your shot, your shot, your shot, none of my shots.
Yeah. I think like healthy competition, like I think, to be honest, we use that as a silliness on the day sometimes to be like, here we go, like let's do this. But no, not any deep seated.
I think we're too different in our photographing approaches for that. Tini's all about the grannies and like just the
all the wee hugs and cute interactions.
Like that. And I'm like, what can I shoot through? How can I make this
upside
cooler?
down.
Climbing trees.
Climbing trees.
And then the floor, check upside down. Like that's the sort of thing.
And I'm just like, what's this guy doing?
Yeah, you can't match that. You can't match that. You don't want to match that.
No.
I think like in terms of, I actually don't think Lucinda could go into business with me because I would be that type of guy. I'd be getting into bed at night and be like, right, objectives, where are we going?
Well, like, you're right. That is a big part of it. Like closing the door, that's a huge part of like being a business, like being husband and wife. Like it's,
Sometimes I pace around the bed. You're in bed and I'm pacing around the room, but like, we could do this. We could do this. We could do this. And you're like, yeah.
Or we could go to sleep.
Yeah. Don't you care? Yeah.
We had I wouldn't say an argument. I don't think we very rarely have arguments as a couple, but I remember I came home last night, the other night, and we were doing something in the backyard, and I was like, right, I've wrote out a list of objectives, and she goes, I'm going to stop you right there. Don't talk to me as if I'm one of your colleagues at work. You don't have to set me objectives. We'll do a little to-do list. We'll make it really nice and work our way through it. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I think Lucinda would have me killed.
It's a yes. Yeah. I think I'd have you killed too.
Not for everyone.
Yeah. And it's interesting because obviously you spend a lot of time like getting to know couples, and so how did you guys meet?
We met in Canada. That's where we met. Yes, of all places. So I went away. I ran away from where I was living. I didn't want to be there anymore.
Ex-girlfriend.
So I was like, get me out of this place. So I found Canada. They actually came to our church and they said, hey, we're looking for people to come and work here, look after kids. And I was like, yep, it's furthest away from here, I'll go. So I went, and I was only there for about 10 weeks, just over the summer. I was like a counselor for the kids. And then you rocked up about 5 weeks in. You came with an Exodus group.
Yeah.
And you rocked up. You came in one of those big yellow school buses, massive classic ones. And then the camp
Stepped off the bus with my phone here.
The camp was so big, so big. I really shouldn't have been in that spot, but I was by chance at the spot where she pulled up, and she literally walked out, and I saw her hair, and I was just like, that's it. Like, I'm in love. That's it. I noticed it straight away. In fact, that is the coordinates of where we actually met for the first time, because I know the point where I was where I first ever saw her. So I put those. So if you put those in Google Maps, that will show you the point where we were. But so when I saw her, I was like, yeah, I need to get that girl's attention. So I went over to the leader and I was like, hey, let me help with the bags. Yeah, help with the bags. So I went over and started trying to get in the way and pick up bags, and I ended up picking up your bag, didn't I?
Yeah, you were meant to help the boys with theirs. And you picked up mine. And I was like, how funny. Because I also had seen him walking across.
Yeah.
I think I was just really excited to be in Canada, and I was like, oh, there's going to be lots of hot boys.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I
And then
saw
you got
you.
me.
Because they were expecting a Canada boy
Yeah,
to do.
Canadian
think-
tanned, ripped guy, and you got weedy little me.
Oh, you were so cute. You had like this like floppy hair at the
Had that
time.
long kind of flicky hair, and
It was doing it for me, Xander. It was doing
yeah.
it.
And then that
We
was
spent like 2 weeks just kind of chasing each other, like
Yeah.
doing that thing where neither of us realized that the other one liked each other. But like my friends would have been like, we'd be playing Scrabble and they'd be like writing like words, just being like, oh, you die. And we're like,
but the right words I didn't know, like fierce, and I didn't know what
the
that
element
meant,
of facing. No.
which means kiss. But anyway, so I didn't know any of that sort of stuff, which is weird because some of her friends I still know like now that we were with them a couple of days ago. So it's weird thing I've known them as long as I've known Christine,
Yeah.
just because of that weird thing. And actually, one of them. She has a cupcake place called Jaybird, and like she was there, so it's just kind of weird to see. She's now a vendor, obviously, for weddings too. So, and that was it. And then we had our first kiss in Canada. The last night, 2 a.m. in the staff room. We shouldn't have been out. It wasn't meant to be
Wild.
out. We're out there.
Crazy kids.
Making out.
Who made the first move?
Me.
Probably you.
Me.
Probably.
Yeah, me.
I think
was
we were
keen.
like on a sofa, like half like
Yeah.
upside
It's
down.
like a
if that makes
Spider-Man
sense.
thing. It was like an upside down kiss.
I don't know what was
Nice.
going on there.
Yeah.
We were clearly
It
being
was
so
wild.
17-year-olds, you know.
And then that was it. You bawled your eyes out when you left.
Yeah.
Even though you told me one of the first things you said, I don't cry.
Yeah,
I don't cry.
much,
I just
no.
don't cry. And then she bawled her eyes out. And then I went over in October, visited, and you came to me. And then literally a year later, I moved over. That was really it. So it was really quick. And mental. If I saw it now happening, I'd be like, oh, too young. If I saw anyone else doing that,
Yeah.
like, you're mad. Don't do that. But
Yeah.
luckily your parents were fine with me doing that.
I was
So
like, I've met the boy I'm going to marry. LOL.
that's what you text them. Yeah, that's right.
I said, you were just like me. And they were like, what? They thought your name was Sandra. Thought my girlfriend.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, that's how we met.
Lovely.
Good times.
Beautiful.
Good times.
I want to end on just to throw a question out there. If you guys had the opportunity to shoot a wedding or a business or someone or shoot with someone, what would be the opportunity that you would, if you seen it coming through in your DMs or your email, you'd be like 100%?
You mean apart from like Ross and Lucinda? No,
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
That
Do you
was
know
a
what?
dream.
This was the one question that I was thinking about, but I'm just not sure because it's so many different things. So obviously, I'd like to shoot that Sam Hurd guy. Like I know he's actually going to be in London soon as well. And I would, if he messaged me, he's like, "Hey, I need a second shoot," I'd be like, "Yes, definitely."
Yeah.
But really, I'd love to go to Asia and shoot any Asian style wedding, just because I love that sort of vibe. I
Yeah.
love that.
All the
I
traditions.
love that culture and sort of, I love that vibe of people. So I wouldn't even care who it is. But then again, this is why it's such a difficult question. But I remember some couples where like a groom's come up to me and he goes, "Xander, I know you're creative. Anything you want me to do, I'll do it. I'll trust you 100%. Anything you ask me to do, I will do it." And that literally made me go, everything became a possibility. So I got to do everything that I thought and they came out insane. And I just like, I would love that. I'd love to do that. I will do anything and I trust you 100%. I know you're not going to get me trashed and I'm not going to get absolutely wrecked or anything. I know that. I trust you. So I think it's that sort of combination. So I know it's a bit of a mishmash of random things. So yeah, so Sam Hurd
like
in
fanboying.
Asia with couples that will go, I'll just do whatever you want to do.
Whatever.
I think I just like the idea of the challenge of like set anyone in front of us and like see if we can just do our thing with them. Like that whole thing of like, even a celebrity, I'm like, do you know the way they would always choose like the magazine editorial person who you just see the photos and go, really? Like your budget was probably epic and it would have been, but I just think I would really love to be just dropped in that kind of like setting and just go, ooh, can we like do our thing as well? So if I think of like the personalities of like how Ryan Reynolds and like Blake Lively, how they like get on as a couple, I'm like, that would probably be a lot of fun to like throw someone like that in front of your camera and go, ooh, can we do what we do?
Couples have like kind of bands with each other that would rather punch someone than like make out. That sort of, that's sort of, I think it's because it's what we are. So
What, punching each other?
yeah, punching each other.
There's been a lot of mention about you punching me, Xander, here. This is a whole different
Smacking
kind
your
of
butt and things like that. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure having
Thanks
you
for
on
having us.
and talking about everything. I think we covered so much, and honestly, I can't I know it's selfishly, I can't recommend you guys enough if you are planning a wedding or even a home birth.
Yes.
There you go.
I like again that you're looking at
I'm
there for it.
I think the main thing to do is here, obviously, we'll link all these guys' website in the description. Please go check them out. And obviously, if you feel like you want to get in touch, pretty easy, reach out. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you for being so honest about everything, business and everything. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you loads. Bye.